Hey, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in today for an important conversation about how this public health crisis and economic crisis is hitting working people here in Arizona. Now, during this public health crisis, I've spent time listening to Arizonans across the state. Before COVID-19, many Arizonan families were already living paycheck to paycheck. Now, workers who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own are really struggling. And their struggles are being made worse by issues here in Arizona and by failures in Washington. For thousands of Arizonans, unemployment insurance is the only way that they can pay rent, fill up their gas tank, buy groceries, and get their prescriptions. Yet, more than 37,000 Arizonans are still waiting to hear if their unemployment claims have been completely processed. That's unacceptable. Because Washington let the additional $600 per week benefit expire, hundreds of thousands of Arizonans who lost work due to this pandemic now receive just $240 in unemployment insurance each week. That's one of the lowest levels in the country. Few states are being hit harder than Arizona by this failure. And there's no sign that they are anywhere close to coming to an agreement. We're seeing political stunts, finger pointing, and campaign events. Meanwhile, Arizonans are really struggling. And now the plan seems to be a new system that will take time to implement and a cut to benefits. And that's ridiculous. This is a crisis. They need to extend the expanded benefits that Arizonans need to put food on the table and to pay their rent. And Washington still doesn't get this. And this is impacting certain folks more than others, clearly, working families, the Latino community, tribal communities. So that's what we're here to talk about today, and to hear from folks who are struggling and who are helping others just try to get through this crisis. So welcome, Supervisor Lena Fowler, Joseph Garcia, Michelle Hornstein, and Sandy Villatoro. So first I want to go around and we're going to start with Lena and then Joseph, Michelle, and then Sandy. And just say a little bit about yourself and if you're with an organization, and if not, just what part of the state are you in? And we'll start with Lena.
I'm Lena Fowler, Coconino County Supervisor. Coconino County is the second largest county in the lower 48. Geographically, it's one of the most rural counties. It has 6 tribes, and we are in northern Arizona. I'm one of the 5 counties board of supervisors. Thank you.
And then Joseph.
There we go, the old mute trick. I'm Joseph Garcia with Chicanos por la Causa, where I'm Director of Public Policy. Chicanos por la Causa is a nonprofit service organization, one of the largest nonprofit organizations in Arizona and one of the largest Latino organizations in the nation. We help people in everything from housing and education, also in economic empowerment. And we've definitely seen an uptick in need from people because of the COVID crisis, and we're here to talk about some of that in unemployment and people facing eviction and so forth. So glad to be here.
Thank you, Joseph. And Michelle, over to you here for a second, but let me just say that Gabby's grandfather, Gabby Gifford's grandfather, his name was originally Akiba Hornstein, so he might be relevant.
Good name. I'm Michelle Hornstein. I am with Unite Here Local 11. We are a hospitality workers union in Arizona, across the United States, and up into Canada.
And then finally, but certainly last but not least, Sandy.
Hi, my name is Sandy Villatoro. I am a member of Unite Here Local 11, and I work at in the hospitality industry.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to start with some questions, and we're going to have a discussion. So I'm going to start with Lena. So Lena, for folks watching who may not know this, Arizona offers the second lowest unemployment benefit in the country at just $240 a week. So what are some of the issues that you're hearing from folks in northern Arizona about getting their unemployment benefits?
The main issue is access. So I have done Zoom. I've asked the Arizona Department of Economic Security to join me on a Zoom presentation, and also the Navajo Nation radio station KTNN, and we presented, what the unemployment eligibility and the programs that are available. And in the end, really, it's the access and getting information out about the eligibility for people. When there are two categories: people that have had employers, working people that were employed. And then there's the other category of self-employed. And when you have a tourism industry and these, and you don't have the manufacturing and big industries in your community, how are you going to make money? People become very creative and they create their own jobs, and those are the unemployment people that are, those are the self-employed people. So in the rural communities and many of the 15 counties in Arizona, people just do not have access to internet. Many places you can't even if you had a smartphone, you can't even access a good reception to be able to file online with the unemployment. So its access is the main issue. Right now, just this morning, I received a Facebook message from a mother of and she was saying that she's been calling for a month just to get her, find out where her application is to see if it actually was processed. And she is out of money. She doesn't know if she's gonna get reimbursed all the way back, like they have been saying. If you apply, DES is saying that if the day you applied, you will be able to get reimbursed from that time all the way back with the COVID pandemic insurance, as well as the unemployment with the state. So we don't know if it's gonna actually happen. So yeah, access is the main issue for individuals, and individuals knowing whether they are eligible or not. Now, if you are employed and you are no longer working, you can apply, but there are many people that are self-employed that don't even know that they are eligible to apply for unemployment. Now, that is really a huge issue. So that's just,
It
it's
gets even
just
more
really
complicated.
devastating to communities and individual families.
It gets even more complicated with family businesses, where family members are working but are often reimbursed in a different way than typical salary as an hourly employee. So it makes it even challenging. When you say access, sounds like what you mean is to have the tools to successfully complete an application, get it submitted, and then to be able to follow up. And I can imagine if you're living in rural northern Arizona, if you don't have a good cell phone connection, you make a phone call to the unemployment office, you're put on hold. Well, you might sit there for 30 minutes and then the call drops, and then you got to start
over
over.
4 hours on the phone waiting for somebody to answer if you don't lose the phone call. And the other is that, access is making sure that you have a good internet connection to be able to do something online. If you don't have that, you're not able to apply. Many people cannot, once you apply, you have to reapply or online just to update your file every Sunday. You have to go in and report. And if you don't have that internet access, you're not able to do that. And if, even if you call to be able to try to do it with a phone call, you can't get a hold of anyone. So in the presentations that we did with the DES, their advice was don't call on a Monday or Tuesday, call later on in the week, and Sunday is probably a good day. Even with all of the additional employees that they have hired, they're just so behind with everything. Their system is an old system. Their phone system is old. Their technology is old. This is just put on them. They're trying to go through the cases. And then there was fraud. There are people that they're using the American, the Bank of America card. There are many people that had their unemployment put in those accounts, and they were canceled. The reason is because there was a suspicion of fraud. And so now those individuals who had been approved are now waiting to find out what is going on with their account. And
Well,
they can't get anybody to answer the telephone.
I want to move to Joe for a second here. So, Joe, what would you say the biggest obstacle right now for Arizonans that you're working with, who are trying to make ends meet? What's the biggest challenge? And I mean, can Arizonans really be expected to survive on just $240 a week?
Well, of course not. And it's been, a couple of decades since that amount has been raised. I think we are just above Mississippi. Other than that, every other state gives more. So, I mean, it just shows that we look at unemployment benefits sort of as a punitive measure against people who lose their jobs. And we make it near impossible for anyone to navigate and maneuver through that system. Just applying is very difficult. And, the online is difficult. Reaching someone for information is difficult. So rather than having a system set up to help people in need, we have a system trying to keep people from using the system when they are in need. And that was before the crisis. Now, during the crisis, of course, it's overloaded the system. And I think we also live on some false numbers when we look at unemployment numbers. Maybe that's like comparing the stock market to the economy. They're not as related anymore. Many people have given up on applying for unemployment. They've tried and they've just given up. Or they don't fall into those categories, those neat little boxes and grids we put on who qualifies and who doesn't. And then you look at, there's a whole bunch of people that are undocumented, but they're deemed essential workers, but they're ineligible for any kind of assistance, period. But yet they're deemed essential to work for us because many of the jobs they do provide, service and food and healthcare and everything else. So the biggest obstacle, I think, is losing faith that there's something good is going to happen in the future. When you have a government that's not looking out for its people, then you have a people that no longer believe in government. And there's that disconnect is too great. So the system was broken before the crisis. And we look at the crisis now, all it has done is amplify and underscored how broken that system is. But we need to streamline the process. We need to allow people to get on unemployment more quickly. And the number that you mentioned, of course, is paltry. Nobody can survive off that money. We know that. And now we're talking about how much money are we going to get from the feds? The 600 is over. We know that hasn't been reinstated. President Trump says, well, maybe it'll be, maybe we'll give 400, if the states put in 100 per week. Well, states, some are going to do it, some aren't. So we're talking about a loss of income on that as well. Even if it is if Trump, we went to the 400, we're talking about $800 a month less than they were making before. So, if you had before, so people are losing faith in this crisis that government can respond to a crisis and that government has them at their foresight and in mind.
And you mentioned that, this number, this $240 a week, was from some time ago, was 16 years ago. And we know since 2004, the prices of rent and food and other things have just continued to go up. And I suspect if you go and look at the numbers in 2004, like where we were nationally, we were probably still close to where we are today, which is 49th in the state. I don't know exactly. But I want to move to Michelle for a second here. So Michelle, can you tell us a little bit about how this pandemic has affected first your job, and then how are you and your family doing?
So before the pandemic, I was working as a server in a restaurant inside of Sky Harbor Airport. So we were furloughed in March. I haven't worked since March 15th. And it has been very difficult. You're used to making a set amount of money. I had my really great health insurance through my job. And now it's kind of just, where can I stop spending money? Where can I scrape money? Where can I, find cheaper groceries? My company did not pay for our insurance the entire time we've been furloughed. And so we were just dropped from our insurance the first of this month. So I had to apply for access. And it's just been a really disheartening experience as far as the system. They were the two speakers before me talked about this broken system. And as somebody who has never had to use it before, it's really discouraging. There's no easy way to get answers to questions. I was on the phone for over 2.5 hours the other day and just hung up because I got so tired of sitting and waiting. So yeah, I will say that it was a little bit easier in the beginning when I was getting the extra $600 a week because it was more manageable. My landlord was willing to work with me and take half rent. But I've since been, I had to move out because she wouldn't work with my financial situation anymore. And she told me I had 30 days to move out. So
was that even with the eviction moratorium from the governor in place, you still felt compelled that you had to leave because of the pressure that she put on you?
yeah, it was just not a very good situation. She wanted me to pay all of the back rent that I owed her because she was taking less for about 3 or 4 months. And I couldn't really afford to try and fight her on that when I still owed her. I had to pay her almost $1,600 all at once for the back pay, on top of trying to find somewhere else to live, on top of losing my insurance, on top of losing the $600. And so yeah, it's been very depressing. And it feels like it's only getting worse as time goes on, and we're only making, after tax, it's only $216 a week. And who can pay anything with that? So
Right. Incredibly challenging. So Sandy, can you share with us too a little bit about how this has affected your family and also what your experiences was in trying to access unemployment benefits?
Like Michelle said, at my job, I used to work at the Sheraton downtown Phoenix, and we were in our peak season. We were getting 6-7 days a week, and to go from 6-7 days to 2 days to, oh, you're going to be laid off on the 28th of March. It was very difficult because I had to work as much as possible to get more PTO hours so I can cover the days that I wasn't working. And it was just hard trying to get unemployment because they just weren't answering. They just weren't, the system kept breaking down. Like when I was online, I was trying to access it through there and it would break down in the middle of the application, or I would call and it would be the longest wait.
Sandy, even with a good internet connection,
yes, even with the good internet connection. Yeah, it was still the same thing. It would crash in the middle, and I'm like, great. So it wouldn't save it, so I had to start from the beginning. And after I actually got through to it at the end, I kept doing my claims every week, and I just didn't hear anything from them. And after a month and a half, they sent me a letter that they were gonna deny me and that I should apply again.
Did
And
they give
then
you a reason?
No, not really. They just told me that I was being denied. And then they told me I should apply again and see if I can get it. And then I applied again. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, okay, we're going to give you, but since you got a check, my last check was like in the middle of May, they're like, we're not going to pay you for those days, even though you didn't work because you got a last check from March 28th. And it was only like $100 and some. And I was like, okay.
Even though the pay period was in March, because the check arrived in May, that somehow counted and put
Yes.
you in a situation where you didn't, even though you were unemployed.
Yes. They told me they're like, we're not going to pay you for those weeks because you did get a last check from your job from that day.
Even though it was not close to what your previous pay had been.
Yeah, it was only for like 2 days. Yeah.
Now, look, tell me what it would mean for you and your family if the additional $600 a week from the federal government was extended, because it ended at the end of July. And what impact does that specific part of this have on you and your family?
Well, with the 600 before, we were perfectly fine. You know, we were paying, we were catching up on our bills because, like I said, it took almost a month and a half to get them to actually give me the money that, you know, I was trying to apply for. And even with the back pay, I was still behind on my bills and I was still trying to catch up even with the 600. And now like the bills are piling up again because I've already gone 2 weeks with only the 214 that we get after tax. And I can't sleep at night, you know, because I'm like, what am I going to do next week? What am I going to do this tomorrow? What am I going to make for dinner? What am I going to make for lunch? My son, he's starting to do remote learning. So he's here at home most like all day. So I don't know what to fix him for lunch. I don't know what to do for him because I don't have enough money for groceries for the entire week because I have to decide whether I want to actually pay my rent and my bills or if I want to buy groceries for my children.
What's the situation with your rent?
My situation with my rent right now, our landlord, he's actually really nice. He's actually a family friend. So he's letting us try to pay as much as we can, as you know, as whenever we can. But it's not really working as much because, you know, I'm barely getting enough. Like I said, 214 isn't enough. And my husband's job is like really slowing down because usually at this time, like when his slow season starts, my peak season is. So we would always like, you know, balance each other out. But now it's just us, it's just we're half, like I'm only making like not even like a third of, or a fourth of what I was making before. And he's not working a lot either.
Incredibly challenging. So Lena, how widespread is this in Northern Arizona specifically? So what I mean by that is how many folks are you hearing from, and what is the impact specifically for Northern Arizonans and what I mean, like in the rural and native communities, do you feel it's just, I mean, thousands of folks are experiencing the same thing? Is that the situation? Lena, you're muted.
So what we have to remember is in December, the Navajo Generating Station closed. As a result of that, the Peabody coal mine closed. So those were the big employers and people who made, you know, good salary. And then the pandemic happened. Everything shut down. Navajo Nation is still shut down. So it's closed, and so therefore the businesses are closed. So I live in Tuba City. On weekends, we don't have store or gas station. You just can go to the gas pump, but the stores are not open. So I believe personally that majority of the people are eligible for unemployment. There's so many unemployed people, and the small businesses. There are some that have closed. They just have, there many of our small businesses that not get the PPP. Um, and so that just devastated the the small business industry. And like I said, self-employed people that are artists, they're accountants, they are professional caterers. You know, these are self-employed people, and they are not in the numbers of unemployment. They're unemployed. They don't have the business that they have. People that are selling their jewelry, we even have the weavers and we that are out there, and the people that are performing and that we love to go to festivals, and those are the performers. They're unemployed, they're self-employed. So we are it's just uh, we are constantly, every day we get another message on trying to, you know, um, help me to reach DES. And all we can say is to keep calling, which is really, really sad. We're a county, we're one of the 15 counties in Arizona. We have our whole team, economic development manager, our workforce development programs. We initiated the uh, the rental assistance, utility assistance. We're trying to help out. However, people are unemployed, and they just don't know what to do. We're helping businesses we deliver packets to businesses that are laying their employees off, and to those packets explain to the employees exactly some of what their rights are, some of the programs that are available, how to take care of themselves emotionally, to their children, access to food banks. We have access to all the resources are in that booklet, which is really sad to deliver to businesses. And it's very hard on these families to find themselves. They have such pride in their work, the way they carry themselves. And now they have to figure out where they're going to get help.
Yeah.
And
well, hey, so Joseph, hard to say when this is going to be resolved in Washington. The politics and the partisanship is at a level that it's been incredibly challenging to, even in a crisis, to get stuff done. So we're all really incredibly concerned about this. How concerned are you about how the Arizonans that you're hearing from are going to make ends meet, and what the impact is going to be in these communities?
Well, you know, first of all, I think we should point out that nonprofits have really stepped up to the plate on this and have dealt with this in a way that they've never had or weren't prepared for and don't have the resources are. But, you know, and for instance, at CPLC, we provide some eviction prevention funds and some anti-homeless funds, and we've gotten some money from the state, from Governor Ducey's office to help with that, but not near enough on dealing with the scope of need, which is going to increase. And, you know, today we're talking about the unemployment and people on the financial side, but of course, we know that families are also dealing with the devastating loss, the human loss of people's lives, and people's lives who are being negatively impacted through health conditions. And, you know, we have the way we built the system in this nation is that healthcare is tethered to your work. And if you lose your work, then you lose your healthcare. And if you lose your healthcare, you may lose your house because you may go bankrupt. So the ripple effect of understanding how this is going to impact going forward is something that we have a very short-sighted view of. And we need to look on the long range, because when the moratorium ends on evictions, there's going to be a wave of Arizonans and other Americans who are going to be losing their homes. And many are going to be homeless for the first time in their lives, not knowing what to do, where to turn from. Now, it'd be easy to blame landlords, but, you know, many landlords, they own a second house, or that may be their retirement house, they get a little bit of income, but they can't afford to keep paying a mortgage and not get paid a rent. It's a very small business, if you will. But the point is that, you deal with the PPP loans. Those went largely to, big businesses and businesses that could survive a crisis like this. But because they were very good bank customers, it was first come, first served. So the smaller businesses were shut out. They weren't given the PPP loans. And the money that was distributing wasn't going to smaller banks, community banks, and we have a lending arm at CPLC. We were denied, so we couldn't help the businesses that we knew were in need of PPP loans. And the short-sightedness comes down to thinking that, well, that money is just, it's just going to a business, and it isn't. In recent months, we've been a part of 700 PPP loans for a total of $22 million.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the average loan was about $40,000. And if you look at the impact that has, that's 300 jobs saved. So it's an investment in ourselves. It's an investment in our economy. So, we need to get away from the idea that somehow this is free money and people are just going with it and just having a holiday, because it's not the truth. And the truth is that if we're talking about their economy, small business is the backbone. Almost all the gains that were made since the Great Recession were in small businesses, and small businesses largely were built by Latinos and minorities and women, and they're losing everything they had built up since the Great Recession. So they're going to be starting from less than zero. So it needs a comprehensive approach of understanding what this impact is, and it's going to take a national solution. I don't think we can depend on states to do their job. You can see some states don't even believe in masks. We've seen the result. It needs a national solution to a nationwide crisis, one that's going to be with us for a while, including the economic crisis in the wake. So it just needs we need to look at it from a very realistic point of view, forget about ideology, and realize that what we're trying to save are people's lives, for one, on the health side, but people's lives going forward in economic terms. Hardworking people, from no fault of their own, they could be losing their homes and find themselves homeless for the first time again, from no fault of their own. So the crisis is going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And now's the time to look in the long range and not the short range in terms, and there cannot be any gaps. There can no longer be any gaps between help, because people will fall through the holes and fall through the cracks and fall through the gaps. They may not be able to recover.
Yeah, Joseph, so you're right. We have a public health crisis that caused an economic crisis. We clearly we have a crisis of leadership. We don't have a national plan on this, and we often don't think ahead well enough. Congress and Washington can also often be very reactionary and not try to have a long-term view of how this crisis is going to unfold over months, if not over the next couple of years. So I completely agree with you on that point. I want to get back to Sandy and Michelle just for briefly here before we start to run out of time. And I think Sandy might have to end the call here at some point. But so Sandy, we'll start with you. Have there been any organizations that you've been able to reach out to looking for some extra assistance beyond unemployment? Michelle mentioned applying for access, but like CPLC, not specifically them, but other organizations in the community where you've found some help?
Just my union, Unite Here, has been sending me a lot of resources to go to. I'm just afraid to use them, because I was even afraid to apply for unemployment because I'm a DECA recipient, and I didn't know if that was going to hurt me once I applied for, like my husband would apply for residency for me. So it was a really hard decision to make to apply for unemployment in the first place. So I'm really afraid to use any resources at all that involves government or anything like that because of that reason. So honestly, right now, I have not applied for anything like that. So I'm just trying to stay afloat with what I can.
There are organizations that can help you get the information you need because of the uncertainty part of that and can answer those questions for you.
And Mark, I just add in there that CPLC has been part of a community organizations that have formed the Arizona Undocumented Families Relief Fund. And that's something, Sandy, you may look up. And that is understanding that because not undocumented families are not eligible to any relief from the federal government or the state. So private donations that have come in, and we are disseminating money to those who are in need, understanding that, you know, that we need to help everybody in here beyond, you know, beyond party, beyond documentation, beyond zip code, beyond state. We need to just separate all that and help as many as we can. So I'll just mention that relief fund, and those who want to donate certainly can too as well.
And Michelle, have you had much success reaching out to other organizations for some assistance?
So mostly, I agree with Sandy. I've mostly gotten resources from Unite Here, thankfully. When all this first happened, I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I had applied for us to get SNAP. But I applied for SNAP, I applied for unemployment, and I also applied for the rental assistance program. I was denied for SNAP because the $600 extra a week disqualified me to get any nutritional assistance. And I was denied the rental assistance. I'm not entirely clear why, but it was a very lengthy process. I applied, I had to give a ton of information, and I waited over a month to hear anything. And then I was told I had 3 days to complete my process. So they didn't really give me a lot of time to gather the documents that I needed. And then I was, denied anyway. So yeah, I mean, short of trying to use like a food bank or, we recently, Unite Here was giving out fries and Safeway gift cards a couple days ago. And it was a huge help. I actually got to use it for groceries today. But yeah, other than that, there's different grants for service industry folks to apply for, which I've tried to apply for some. And I'm still waiting to hear back on a couple of those.
Before we close here, I just want to make sure that if there's something you feel that's important information to get out there, some experience, some resource, I just want to go around one more time, and then I'll have a few final remarks. But I want to start with Lena. Is there anything you think we may have missed in how we have been addressing this challenge and what we need to do moving forward?
Congress really needs to come together, really understand, realize the need that we hear of every day and we see every day, right in our communities, so within our own families and our neighborhood, our communities, and they just need to come together and realize that. The other is that Arizona needs to really address unemployment.
And Joseph?
Yeah, we have a website, obviously, cplc.org. And if you go there, there is a special section that's dealing with COVID relief efforts. It's both in English and in Spanish. And it lists many links to information that you may need and links to help that you can reach out to. It could be utility assistance. It could be rental assistance. The important thing is that you can find help that you need. It's kind of a one-stop shopping. So I invite you to go there. The other thing I would mention is that, we need to make sure that that people don't have shame because of this crisis. It is not anyone's fault if you lose your job and you find yourself under some stress that these are hardworking people whose lives have been turned upside down in many ways, and financial stressors are just making it worse. So, go to a food bank, get some food. Use your money for something other than food as much as you can. And don't worry about, there is no shame attached to that. Food banks, are responding and no questions are asked, no judgment is passed. But by all means, you do what you need to do, but realize that when people are trying to help out by giving a helping hand, accept that gesture and, and understand that that there is no shame. In fact, there is dignity, I believe, in providing and accepting help when needed.
Thank you, Joseph. And Sandy, anything you feel that you didn't have an opportunity to say here about this crisis and how it's affecting you and your family?
I just want to say that I'm not a lazy person. I actually want to go back to work, but I want to go back safely. I want to know that if I go to work, I'm going to be there safely. I'm going to come back home safely to my 2 kids and my husband, and I'm not going to bring anything back to them. And I have been looking for other jobs, but honestly, I don't want to lose the job that I have now because I do have a union there. And literally before this whole thing happened, we had just won a contract where we had good wages, good benefits. And it's not that I don't want to look for another job. I have looked, but I just don't want to lose the job that I'm at right now.
Thank you. And Michelle, I'm going to give you the final word if there was something you feel that you still want to say.
I think it just kind of goes along with what Sandy's saying. I have been in the food service industry for most of my adult life, and we are hard workers. And the service industry in particular is very able to pivot when a restaurant closes or we lose a job. We're able to find something very quickly. And right now that is not our reality. And I really think that I have heard from multiple people, oh, stop milking the system and go get another job. And, I'm making less money being unemployment, and I would like to be back to work as well. I really enjoy having a union and having really amazing insurance for myself and my daughter. And I really hope that people understand that we are not just trying to milk the system. The system is not very good anyway, and that we're just trying to return to work when we are safe to return, not when we're forced to return.
Well, thank you. And especially to Michelle and Sandy, thank you for sharing your stories. Incredibly compelling. And I appreciate you being here today. I really do. And also for Supervisor Fowler and Joseph, thank you. Really appreciate your perspective, and the resources from Joseph I think could be really helpful. I want to send a clear message to Washington, D.C., and that is that extending these expanded benefits needs to be treated with the urgency it deserves. It is affecting families and individuals here in our state in a incredibly serious way if these benefits are not returned. There's no question we are not through this. We're not through this crisis, and this absence of leadership from Washington, it's hurting a lot of families, hundreds, if not thousands of families right now, maybe tens of thousands just here in our state. So thank you everybody for joining me and for being here and for helping each other and helping your communities. And I want to reinforce what one of the things Joseph said at the end, and that's to reach out and find ways, find those organizations that are providing assistance, and they're there for that reason, and nobody should feel bad about using these services. And Sandy, I think we can, for you specifically, I think we can get you some, information about some of the things you're concerned about, and we'll follow up. So thank you, everybody, and we're going to get through this. We're going to work through this as a team, but we got to get Washington, D.C. back on track. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.